My name is Gorman, and in this episode of Semilla.VC, I sit down with Mariano Mayer, co-founder at Utopia VC. A lawyer by trade, he was a partner at a Buenos Aires-based law firm before joining the government of Buenos Aires as the General Director of Entrepreneurship under then Mayor Mauricio Macri. When Macri was elected President of Argentina, Mariano became Argentina's National Secretary of Entrepreneurs and Small and Medium Enterprises. Then in 2021, Mariano co-founded Newtopia VC, an early stage VC with a focus on startups from pre-product market fit to the seed stage. In this episode of Semilla.VC, we discussed Mariano's thoughts on Argentina as a venture capital and technology hub in 2023, the hardest part of starting a VC fund, Mariano's experiences working in government in Argentina, and why Argentina entrepreneurs were born to build in a world with inflation and uncertainty. We talked about all this and more in this episode of Semilla.VC. Mariano, could you start by telling the audience a bit more about your work history up to and including your current role at Utopia?
Yes, sure. I am a lawyer. I was working as a partner as a law firm for 15 years. We started, in fact, a law firm focused on startups and funds in 1999, and we saw rise and fall of the ecosystem. But it was exciting, especially in Argentina, because we were part of the development of the entrepreneurial ecosystem. We work a lot, not only with startup, but also with Endeavor and with NGOs and universities. In 2013, I joined public service. I was not involved in politics or anything like that, but as many of my generation, we were sort of called or summoned. And so I entered the government of Buenos Aires City to try to develop the entrepreneurship policies there. Very, very interesting experience. And I was more than 2 years there. And then the mayor of the city, which was Mauricio Macri, he won the national election, presidential election. And they offered me to continue in public service as the Secretary of State for Entrepreneurship and Small Businesses and Knowledge Economy. So I accepted, and I was there for 4 years, the 4 years of the mandate. Also, incredible experience working with entrepreneurs, also with SMEs, because the agenda was also SMEs. Many things in common and many others that not, but it was incredible working all over Argentina and also being very, very involved in the international community, G20, WTO, UN, etc. So when we finished the mandate, I returned to the public sector, to a private sector. We started a consultancy company called Marea, called Tide, which is working in corporate venturing, open innovation, and public policies with states of Argentina and other countries. And in 2021, we started Newtopia with a couple of friends that had, like myself, we have some years working in the ecosystem, and we wanted to do something that would have an impact in the region, especially working with the very early stages of startups. So with a couple of friends, we started this, and also a couple of initial backers. We were mainly entrepreneurs with the same vision. So that's the origin of Newtopia. We started in Buenos Aires. We were living all there in Argentina, and now we are all over Latin America.
Amazing. So I want to first talk about that Argentina component. So I love Argentina. I studied abroad and I did a whole Semilla.VC series about how much I love it from a tech and innovation perspective. And I think there's nobody better on earth potentially to talk about what it really means to build a company within Argentina based on both your experience as a VC and in the government. So I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Argentina as a VC and tech hub in 2023?
Okay. Well, thank you for your kind words for Argentina. It's as we say here in Argentina, it's a feeling. It's not something that you can think about it. You have to experience it. I mean, it's an incredible country, an incredible hub with a lot of talented people. Why? The why, it's difficult to explain. Maybe it's because of the mixture of cultures, a lot of immigrants in Argentina and from very different places, living in harmony and peace. So we have all the best from many cultures. Also, well, it's a very big country with very different sceneries and climates and places, and also it's a very changing environment in regulation, in doing business. So it's very difficult to start a company and to run a business in Argentina. I usually say that the businessmen, especially the ones running SMEs, are a mixture of heroes and crazy people, because it's complicated from the taxes point of view, bureaucracy, labor law, the lack of finance, regulations to import and to export, and so it's not easy, but in a way that challenging environment has made us very flexible and resilient. In the past 2 weeks that we were part of many international forums, we were making this joke that we as Argentinians have been preparing for the last 200 years for this time of the world. We are very prepared for this world with inflation and conflicts and everything. But this mixture with a very big technological hub, not only in Buenos Aires, but in many places, in many other provinces, which it's a big asset that we have. Many people don't know, and in fact, many people in Argentina don't know that Argentina exports a lot of knowledge economy. We export $7,000 million. So it's the second or the third export of Argentina, much more than meat, for example, or wine, like 10 times wine and 3 times meat. There are many BPOs and service centers in Argentina and amazing companies like Gorman and Mercado Libre. So it's a crazy and complicated environment, talented people, a lot of challenges, and so it's like a very interesting sandbox, Argentina. But of course, it shouldn't be so complicated. It's in a way I'm trying to make fun of that, but it's to cry and to cry a lot, because it's complex when you have so much difficulties. There is a lot of brain drain, people going to other countries or setting the companies in other places and trying to avoid regulation. So it should be much better. We can be much better in that sense. The doing business could be a lot simpler for startups.
I really appreciate that answer about Argentina in 2023. I'm going to discuss more about Argentina, but first, I want to ask a very broad question that I know you've been asked before, but I think I must ask it to do a service to the English language audience that listens to Semilla.VC. I want to ask, why did you co-found Newtopia, and what do you guys do differently?
Okay, we co-founded because I mean, when the pandemic, when after the change of government, there were many people that were, because they were afraid of what could happen, they were leaving the country. Many talented people, unicorns, friends, and then the pandemics, which was very tough, the quarantine in Argentina. So it was also sad. But at that moment, with many friends, that we decided to stay in Argentina, and we started having like transcendent conversations because we have time for that. We decided that, as Mark Andreessen said in his post, it's time to build. So we decided that yes, it was a time to build, because the digital transformation we at that moment we thought it would be accelerated in many doubts about sectors being able of transformation with talent and technology, that were afraid of that. They started to do it, whether they like it or not, like the forced pilot proofs. So at that moment, we decided I wanted to do something that it was an opportunity to try. We were always convinced that the future of Latin America were the entrepreneurs. But at that moment, it felt so real because we saw that there was an opportunity of really making a difference and taking advantage of that nudge, of that boost. So and we realized that there were many people like us that they were doing things on their own, mentoring, investing, and there was an opportunity of sort of organizing that community to make something with more impact, with more scale. And so we started with ourselves and we with the first conversations with these leaders of the tech world, unicorns like Marco Galperin, where we saw that they was also interested in backing us with this initiative. That's why we started. We want to be part of the transformation of Latin America, helping and investing the best entrepreneurs that are trying to do that. We have many challenges in the region, in every sector that you can see, education, mobility, food, finance, but now the talent has been sort of unleashed or unlocked. There were always talent, or at least for the last 20 years, but now there is like a giant wave of talent that they want to solve all the problems that we have in the region. And we want to be part of that because we see an opportunity of making an upgrade in the region that have many problems that are, we cannot ignore those kind of problems that we have. Countries with 50% of poverty, 70% of juvenile poverty, it's like a sin. So we must act. And we think that the best way to support the entrepreneurs that are trying to solve those problems.
And what was the hardest part of starting a VC fund?
The hardest part, fundraising. No, it's an amazing challenge because you are doing something meaningful with purpose. So for us, sharing our story, our ideas, and the purpose that we have, and trying to convince other people to join us, we enjoy that. It's not like work. It's difficult, especially when you are a first-time manager in VCs. One thing when you're raising your second or third fund, the other thing is when you're raising your first one. Even when we had a lot of previous experience, either as investors or creating the fund of funds in Argentina, the innovation fund, or Sasha, he had his own fund. But as a team, we were a first-time manager. And for many institutional investors, and they cannot invest. So it was hard work, but the same for entrepreneurs. So we cannot complain of that. And then, of course, trying to define the thesis and to combine. When you are a VC, you invest in very few projects, and you meet amazing guys that are doing incredible things, and you have to say no to many of them. So, and in my case, that I came from the development side, only in my experience at government, that when you are a government, you have more flexibility and you try to help everybody. It's different when you are in the VC with the VC hat. So there are many projects that you have to pass. So that's hard.
I love it. So you mentioned the brain drain for Argentina in one of your previous answers. And I think one of the companies that might be emblematic of that would be Kiwi, where the founders left Argentina and now they're in Mexico City, but then they're still building something that was, deeply rooted in Argentina. I'd love to hear about why you guys invested in them and about that kind of journey that many Argentine founders have to make in going to a larger market like Brazil or maybe Colombia and Mexico.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, it happened to other countries that are very talented, but with small markets, like Israel, for example. When the startups, all the startups that we have invested from 50 different countries, founders. So we have founders from Bolivia, from Peru, Uruguay, Panama, Costa Rica, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, of course, Mexico, Brazil, and Argentina. But with all of them, we analyze if they have Mexico or Brazil or the US in their roadmap, because those are the big markets, and we want projects that have a regional approach or a global approach. So in case of Argentina, it's part of that. It's an interesting market to start and to make some pilot proof, but then you need to have Mexico or Brazil or the US in your roadmap. But so we have a lot of projects that are now really focused on those markets, but they still have the back office or the development teams in their own country, like Argentina. That's why most of these projects have an impact in many countries, not only in the market where they are acting. And in case of Kiwi, well, they are incredible, and they are addressing one of not a problem for Latin America, a worldwide problem, which is the waste of food, which is incredible. The amount of food that is wasted with so many people with hunger in the world, it's a sin. So we need to do something about it, and they are trying to solve it with technology. Of course, it's challenging. You need to work with corporations. Also, you need to work with the habits of people to create traction. But we like, and they are very courageous with the decisions that they have taken, and that's what we like of them.
And you mentioned that the past election, after Macri, might have made some people leave Argentina. What do you think is going to happen in the upcoming election, and how do you think that'll change Argentina?
Well, I think that this is challenging times for every country, not only in Argentina. I mean, with all the society, as somebody was mentioning, we are millionaires in information, but billionaires in expectations. So it's today to be at government in any country, it's very challenging, and the pandemics also created even more challenges, and with the post-pandemic also, with inflation and all the things that you did to try to solve the problem. So I think it's an interesting moment for the private sector, because the public sector have shown that they have, of course, incapacity to solve many problems that usually people think that were like taboo or were part of only the public agenda. So one of the positive things of the pandemic is that the private sector, entrepreneurs and corporations, have taken leadership positions, and they have stepped forward to try to cooperate and to solve these big problems that we have. So I see, and Argentina is part of that. I see that the leaders, the business leaders, and also the different leaders are realizing that Argentina has another big opportunity. We have lost many opportunities in the past, many. We have a new one, thanks God, and and we have to take it, and we could do it. Yeah, we could do it, and there is a lot of consensus about that. Yeah, besides ideologies and whatever, but there is a consensus that we need to create that the best way to reduce poverty is creating more companies, creating more jobs, and giving opportunities for people to be part of the digital economy, and to give access to opportunities wherever the people are living. Argentina is a big country, so you need to work in a federal way. So, and I think that if you zoom out from the discussions of these days, the consensus is growing about what should be done for Argentina to be main protagonist of this time, because we are very prepared for this world, I think, if we can solve some of the 20th century problems that we still have.
And you mentioned courage when talking about the Kiwi founders coming to Mexico. I think it's quite courageous to go into the Argentine government because of the international reputation that it does have. So I admire that, and I want to ask, based off that, you were in both the city government of Buenos Aires, which is doing a pretty good job, I would say, on the scale, and then the government of Argentina nationally. I'd love to ask, what did you see on the inside there that maybe people wouldn't know? What are like the common misconceptions about the government in Argentina? And then what do you think needs to change for it to be a place where people will found companies there without having all sorts of holding companies everywhere else, so they don't pay any Argentine taxes, and they, it's not just their service workers there. So I'd love to ask.
Oh, I in my experience, there are a lot of talented people trying to serve their country. We need to be organized in a better way, and to try to live as part of the ideology, and to agree on some basic things. But when you talk with other people, I think we are not so far away. You have like different colors or flavors in some things, but in some others, we agree that Argentina has a big potential in technology, that there is a big hub, and so for me, the experience was incredible. I have met all the country, from north to south, west to east. Met amazing people, and amazing people also working in the public sector. And so for me, was an experience that I will recommend. It didn't have a very good reputation working at government, but I think it's worth it, and to have at least some experience, and to cooperate with your country, put your money where your mouth is, and like they said. So I will recommend that, but I think it's starting to happen. I like a lot what Esteban Bullrich, which is former senator, very good friend, very tech savvy. He's trying to work in that sense of trying to focus on the things that unite us, and not the things that separate us.
So you went from government to venture capital. I think that's very unique. And then another thing that's quite unique is from being a very successful lawyer in a venture capital. So I want to ask about, how being a lawyer informs your role as an investor, as a general partner, working with founders, especially in and around the Argentine sphere. How did being a lawyer inform your role now?
Well, I studied law because there were many possibilities. It was not a very convinced decision, but it was an interesting career that we have there. And you learn a lot about relations, and about balance in relations. And when you are investing, you have to analyze a project, not only at how it is today, but to try to project things at least 10 years ahead. And lawyers, we do that all the time. When we analyze a contract and we are negotiating that, we are trying to think what might happen in the future with that relations. So it's the same, practically the same. Always trying to look for balance and equilibrium, because when an economic relation doesn't have that balance, we have problems between the founders, or with the founders and their investors. So in the end, that training that you have, it helps a lot when analyzing a project, especially in our case when we are investing in very early stages. So there you have mostly the team, and you have to analyze how they are, how is the relation between the founders, what would happen, and also you are establishing like a marriage with as an investor. I don't remember who was the guy. I don't know if Peter Thiel or which investor was saying that the average term of a VC, the relation of a VC with the startup, it's higher than the average marriage in the US. The duration of that. So I think that helps a lot with analyzing the startup. Besides other things that are more like regulatory things, but I like most talking about balance.
So I want to switch gears to a fun question, a very open-ended question. What are you most excited about right now?
What I'm about Utopia and Latin America. I think it's a very challenging moment. And if you zoom in, probably you say you have to fly away from Latin America because we have political problems, economic problems, uncertainty about election and many things. But if you zoom out, I think it's an amazing region. You have big population, young, talented population with very good cell phone penetration. All the problems there. And finally, the mindset of the entrepreneurs have changed and they are seeing this as opportunities. It's a commonplace, or maybe it's a cliche what I'm saying, but it can be more accurate. So I'm excited about the deep trends in Latin America of talented people trying to solve the problems that we have with technology, and being able of being part of that, at least with a tiny part, and with incredible partners and amazing investors. For me, it's like a blessing.
So a lot of funds are, technically based in Buenos Aires. They might have started there, but I don't think any have the true focus on investing in Argentina that Newtopia does, especially in 2023 with the amount of investments you guys have done. What do you see from companies and founders operating in Argentina that might be different from other countries where founders in Brazil or Mexico might be solving different problems or interacting with different issues? Well, what's different with Argentina from on the ground where you are?
We have invested, as I mentioned, from 15 different countries, and we like to mingle them a lot. We have at least 2 times a year, 3 times a year, these community events where we gather all the founders to live in a house, to spend some time together, to have breakfast, dinner, and to have small conversations. And we see a lot in common, and that's why I think that in many cases the famous integration of Latin America will be made by the entrepreneurs rather than government. But of course, in some things you see the Argentinians that are very the talent there is everywhere. Amazing talent in Colombia, in Brazil, in Peru, in any country. But maybe because of this challenging environment that we had for many years, Argentinians are very resilient, and they have a sort of, as they say in Israel, this kind of chutzpah, which is this kind of attitude that for some people could be a negative connotation, but it could be also a positive one. And we have a say here, I don't know if you have the same, but it's don't get drowned in a glass of water. And we don't do that as Argentinians, because there's always something that you can try, and how people here are trying to deal with all the restrictions and regulations for paying or for the exporting. Of course, it's a pain and it shouldn't be like that, but in a way that many years of that have made the entrepreneurs like commandos.
Amazing. Okay, so finally, I have to ask Peter Thiel's famous contrarian question, but with uniquely Semilla.VC twist. What important truth about Latin America do very few people agree with you on?
That's a very good question. Well, it depends in the context, but many people think that most of the people, they hate Argentinians because we are smug and we are very posh, whatever. I don't know if that's true. It could be, but in many cases, it's not as bad as that.
Well, okay, Mariano, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the Semilla.VC podcast today. I very much appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and congratulations for this initiative.
Thank you for watching this episode of Semilla.VC. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you view the podcast. Follow me on Twitter @GormanTrip. And be sure to check out our newsletter, Dealflow LA, which can be found by going to dealflow.la.